Welcome to Midlife Matters. I'm Marie, and each week I'm joined by my friends Julie and Mindy to talk about all the topics keeping women in the middle years up at night. Today we're discussing generational differences. Each generation makes and breaks rules, creates new paths, and shakes things up. Join us as we share the ways we differ from our parents and our kids differ from us. Let's get started. Hi, Julie and Mindy.
Hi,
Hey, Marie. Hey, Julie.
How are you guys doing today?
Doing good.
Doing good. It's gorgeous outside.
It is. It is. And I am laughing at this topic. You guys, I'm excited about doing this. We're going to talk about generational differences, and who doesn't like to talk about the ways that you're different from either the generation above or below you?
Oh my goodness. I think we're going to have some good laughs.
Because we all think that our own generation does it, in quotes, right.
Well, exactly.
Yeah. So have you guys ever noticed that you and your children see things in different ways? Like right from the time they can talk, am I right?
Mm-hmm. Oh, it's so true. Especially with technology. Technology comes into the picture and everything changes.
And I was thinking about this with my kids the other day, in particular the two that are on their own now, and the many different ways that we approach things. So today I thought it would be fun if we just talked about some of these generational differences, laugh about them, explore, what should we do about them, if any, understand each other better. But before we get started, listeners, I want to briefly talk about the 5 different generations that are out there in the world today. So I found an interesting article online that I'll link in our show notes if you want to read what they said more in depth. But there are basically 5 generations. There's the silent generation, there's the baby boomers, there's Gen X, there's Gen Y, which we also know as millennials, and there's Gen Z. So let me just read you what this article said. And you guys tell me, you guys know people in these generations. Tell me if you think what they're using to characterize them holds up. So the silent generation is everyone born before 1946. And this is known as the traditionalists. And really, they're the silent generation because they were born during a day where children were expected to be seen rather than heard. In other words, to do as they were told and be good. So this generation is characterized by being hardworking, strong willpower, loyal and respectful towards authority. And this is the generation that grew up during the Great Depression and World War II. So they think work is a privilege and they're known for their very strong work ethic. So these would be maybe some of our grandmothers or our great-grandmothers or our mothers. But I think we all can think of someone in our life like this. Do you guys have someone that's from the silent generation in your family?
That would be my mom and dad were born during that time.
Okay.
Yeah.
And do you think that those things characterize them?
Yeah, definitely. Hardworking, very much the respect for authority. I don't know that children seen and not heard, somewhat true, but not in a harsh, unloving way. Right. But definitely different than kids are perceived today.
And I think it's that they were raised that way, not necessarily that they raised their kids that way. And so that's why they're called the silent generation. That's kind of how they were raised.
Yeah.
Well, that is, my grandparents fit into that category. And I'm very blessed to still have my mom's parents. And they do. And in fact, I think even the Depression really instilled just this sense of you reuse things, you keep things longer. You don't throw everything away. Like I think that we throw things away so much more than they do. And so it's just that sense of taking care of what you have, maybe better than some.
Right. Well, the next generation is the baby boomers, which I think these would mostly be a lot of our parents. They're born between 1946 and 1964. They follow the silent generation. Their common characteristics are that they're goal-oriented, they're competitive, they value relationships. So my parents are baby boomers, and I always think it's interesting to read about your parents from a different perspective.
Right.
Yeah. Now, Julie, you said your mom is from the silent generation. Mindy, are your parents baby boomers?
They are. They're both in there.
Mm-hmm. Okay. What about this competitive? I always say my mom is super competitive every game. Maybe that is a baby boomer characteristic.
I don't know. I'll say, depending on, and I think birth order also fits into this because my mom is a middle child and she's not very competitive.
Okay.
So now my dad is.
Right.
So maybe there's still personality involved.
Oh, definitely.
Right. Well, after the baby boomers comes Gen X, which they're everybody born between 1965 and 1980. So I am a Gen Xer. Julie, are you a Gen Xer?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Mindy?
I just by 1 year fit into this category. And I read this really cool article because whatever generation is next, is it Gen Y?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. There's some characteristics of a couple of years in there, like when I was born, that we kind of gravitate towards a little bit of both.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I fit just in there by a year.
Okay.
Yeah, I was born in 1965, so I could go either way as far as I've seen different numbers, but yeah.
Okay. Well, according to this article, Gen Xers are flexible. They work hard and they play hard. They're individualistic, and they are the smallest generation of all the ones that we're talking about. So we had the big baby boom, and then they didn't have as many kids. So,
okay.
Yeah, there's not been as much written about Gen X. You know, that's they kind of call it the overlooked generation.
Or overlooked.
Yeah. Now, the next generation, Gen Y, they are also known as millennials, which we all know have been written about extensively. And their years, it says they're born between the early 1980s and the mid 1990s. And they value collaboration and teamwork. They change jobs often. Salary isn't everything. They tend to want like a great work-life balance. So I think that my kids don't fall within the millennials, but I know that your kids do, Julie.
My two oldest do.
Okay.
Yeah. Andrew just barely, but yeah, they do.
Yeah. So I don't have a millennial child, although according to some, articles, my oldest can possibly fall in there, but it would be like by a year. So I don't really consider her a millennial. All my kids are Gen Z, which you don't really hear that much about, but they are known as the I generation or the digital natives. And they are tech savvy, they value job security, they're autonomous. So they're just really getting started. We don't know a lot about Gen Z yet, but I think it's going to be interesting to see how they're characterized as time goes on.
Yeah. Well, it's funny, even your description, it's ironic how you described our generation. It's the reason we have a podcast in the first place, is there's not a whole lot of help out there for us. And we thought, well, at least we can talk about things that there's just a kind of a gap, in the podcast world for people our age.
Yes.
We've been overlooked.
Yes, Gen X is overlooked in every category.
So here we are.
Yeah. And so to let you know a little bit where we're coming from today, listeners, I just wanted to share this story because we recently took my granddaughter to meet her great-great-grandmother in St. Louis.
Oh.
So we had 5 generations together. And I think that this is so interesting that we have someone from every single generation. So we had my grandmother, my father, me, my daughter, and my granddaughter. And there are 94 years between my granddaughter and my grandmother. So between the first and last. So when we went to see them, it was so cool to see my grandmother's reaction to a baby at 94 years old. I mean, babies, just no matter what age you are, just charm you, and you have this desire to reach out and touch them and love on them and communicate with them. And that was really fun. But one of the things that my grandmother said, and my mom and I were making a meal while she was visiting with my dad and my daughter, and I heard my grandmother start asking this question. I thought, where is this going? She said, now tell me, was your husband disappointed that the baby was a girl and not a boy? And
Oh,
I
wow.
thought, wow, that is such a generational difference. We would never consider asking that now, but there has been pressure for years for women to produce a boy. And so I
Right.
thought that was so interesting. My mom and I thought she was going to say, was your husband disappointed that you got pregnant? But she didn't say that. That's why we were a little nervous. But my daughter right away, she thought that was funny. And right away she said, oh,
Right.
no, he was thrilled, But I just
Right.
thought it was so interesting that my grandmother, even at 94, would think to ask that question and think that it might have been a problem.
Right.
Well, and even
right.
back in her day, fathers probably didn't even relate to daughters, you know?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's
It
very
was just
true.
so different. Yeah.
Yeah, so that was really cool just to get together with her and then also just to see the differences even in that short little visit.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing that got me first thinking about this topic was that my 24-year-old daughter, who's married and has a baby, so she's like fully out on her own, starting a family, she does not buy napkins, you guys. And so when I go to her house, I have to use a paper towel.
Okay, that's actually really funny because since we've moved to Tennessee, I have not bought napkins. We've only used paper towels.
Okay. Well, I know it's not just a generational thing,
Right.
but it is the opposite of how she was raised because I serve napkins at every meal that we have at the table.
Right.
And if the kids aren't eating at the table, I'm like, get a napkin. If I see them eating on the couch without a napkin, I'm like, you know by now you need a napkin. So I've never not. In fact, during COVID, it was hard to find napkins and I got kind of
Right.
panicky, like, I need to buy
Yeah.
some extra napkins. I know my sister, she had moved to using up all of her holiday napkins. You know how
Yes.
we always have a big store because she couldn't find
Yes.
them at Walmart. So I just thought it was so funny that Abigail literally never even buys napkins, only uses a paper towel. So I read that that is characteristic of her generation. She said that many of the people that she knows don't buy napkins anymore.
Wow.
That's so funny. When you were saying that, Marie, I didn't know where you were going with it. And I thought, well, at least she buys paper towels.
Okay.
Yes.
Because my daughter doesn't buy either.
Oh.
She, so when I go, I'm always wiping up something at my house on the counter,
Mm-hmm.
pulling off paper towels, wiping off something.
Right.
So when there's a spill, I just don't know how to clean her house. I don't because
Oh.
there's no paper towels.
Mhm.
Right.
So she wanted to go, paperless. So she has like glass bottles with cleaners that she's mixed up. She has towels.
Right.
And then she's made cloth napkins.
Okay.
Well, every time I want to wipe my mouth, if I used a cloth napkin, she'd be out in an
Right.
afternoon,
Oh, uh-huh.
So
Right.
I joke and say, when I come to visit, I'm bringing my own paper towels.
That is so funny, Julie.
She really would like a paperless house. And I thought, the day that you quit buying toilet paper, I can't come.
Oh, for sure. For sure.
So we joke about that. I just don't know how to function without napkins. I don't.
I
Or
don't
paper towels.
either.
Right.
Because when I went to help Abigail with the baby after she was born in March, Abigail did have some napkins that somebody I think had brought by the house. And so I was using those. And then I went back like a week later and there were still some napkins because apparently they don't use them. Well, now the napkins have run out, you guys. I went to
Oh,
use
no.
the napkins the next time and the stash is gone. So I need to
Oh,
bring some
no.
napkins to her house and keep them there.
I know. Guess what you're getting for Christmas, Abigail?
That makes me think of Kleenex too, because I always think of older people. Like my mom, I think, has a box of Kleenex in every room.
Mhm.
Yes.
When she comes here, we just use toilet tissue. Unless we're sick. If we're ill, we go buy
Right.
the Kleenex. But just
Right.
for your, wiping your nose occasionally, we just don't
You
keep
know,
Kleenex
that's
around.
so funny you just mentioned that. My parents just visited and I went and bought Kleenex for when they were at the house. And after they left, I put all the boxes in the pantry.
That's
For
so
next time.
funny.
Yes.
All right. Well, what are some things that you guys that came to your mind when I said, let's do generational differences? Julie, do you want to start us off?
Well, in general, I just think it's a less formal society. And I think that covers a lot of areas that we mentioned, like thank you notes.
Mhm.
Now, ironically, that we're talking about this, my daughter, who's 28, she did just send me a thank you note for Ezra's birthday present. And I
Oh.
loved getting it, handwritten note. And I got one for my
Oh.
mom as well. She sent it to our house, and I just love that. But I do think that the generation as a whole, because I asked my sons about this, and I think boys are different, but if they didn't get a thank you note from someone, they are not even going to notice. You know what I mean?
Right.
They don't
Mhm.
expect that. And I know back when Molly was having her showers, I would always say, "Did you get that? Did you get those thank you notes done? Make sure you get Mrs. So-and-so's." Like, I was really worried about what they would think if Molly didn't send them a note. And she was going to send it, but I was just always questioning and asking and making sure she was on track, because I've just heard older people even comment on the timeliness of the note. Like, well, it was 6 months when I got that note. That's just something that was just ingrained in them. Right. That I think it's going to get lost in this generation.
I say
not that it's true of everyone, but just in general.
I agree with you, Julie, because even this is where I tend to fall into the next generation a little bit. My mom, I was sitting at the table with a list of thank you notes that I needed to write after every birthday and Christmas. I kind of did it with my kids, but now I'm like, just text them. Yeah. Just text them and at least acknowledge, but I kind of let that go.
Yeah.
And so only if I'm really inspired do I sit down and write anything handwritten. So yeah, I don't know. Yeah,
I think most people today would accept a text as appropriate, but
right. Or my mom has made the distinction before. She has said that if you opened the gift in front of them and you thanked them nicely, then you don't have to send a thank you note. And I kind of like that because like if you have a gigantic Christmas gathering and you've already thanked everyone and you've seen them in person, if you then have to write a thank you note, like that just feels like a lot of work. I could see definitely if they mailed you a gift and they didn't see you open it. But if you were there together.
Right.
Yeah, if you've mailed a gift, it's almost like a receipt. You want to know that they got it, you know.
Right.
More than anything.
Right.
Yeah.
I'll say that reminded me though of Christmas cards, because I was thinking about Christmas cards when you mentioned the thank you notes, Julie, because my mom still does handwritten Christmas cards, and like, I feel like our generation, everyone kind of changed over to the photo Christmas card,
That's true.
like it's more digital and there's a picture. Whereas my mom, it's only the actual card.
Yeah. Well, and I do think that Christmas cards are kind of falling by the wayside. Now, I will still send a Christmas card to like my grandmother because she's not on Facebook. But like, I feel sort of like if someone knows you on Facebook, they've already seen your family. So you don't really need the photo on the Christmas card. And then I don't know. I didn't do them for a couple of years, and it was kind of nice having that off my plate. Now, I still love getting them, but I haven't been sending them.
It's funny. I think I'm a rebel enough that I don't want to be locked into feeling like I have to send a Christmas card. I keep people guessing. Like, I'll do it every couple of years. If I don't feel like it, I don't do it. If I have a picture, I might do it. You're going to keep guessing. I don't know if I'm going to send them this year. I still haven't decided.
I guess this is where since I'm on the borderline of the two groups, I would fall into the baby boomer, because I am a little bit old fashioned in that I still like handwritten things and cards and Christmas cards. So I'll probably keep doing it.
I love your handwritten cards. Like, it's so funny because I love receiving those, but I just feel like I am a slacker. Maybe that's what it is. I don't think it's a generational thing.
All right. Well, what are some other things that you see as differences between the generations? Here's an easy one that my daughter texted me this week. She said, Nick told me to have you include this. Nick's my son-in-law, that you don't have to take your hat off in a restaurant anymore. Now, I don't know if I had thought about that in a while, but apparently it's okay to sit at the table with your hat on. And that's not something that, you need to worry about anymore. Have you guys heard of that?
That's actually caused some tension in our family.
Oh, has it? Okay.
Because my dad, when he would see our boys, because they used to wear baseball hats all the time, when they went inside, he said, you need to take your hat off. And they never could understand why. And I don't know that my dad could explain why. Right. We knew in church, but I don't know. And then my husband wears a baseball hat a lot. And so he would just wear it at a restaurant or inside. And I remember, until you said that, I don't think I've thought of that. It used to really bother me when he would not want to take his hat off in the restaurant. But he's like, I've got hat hair. I can't take it off now.
Right. That's how I feel.
I had not thought of that. Yeah. Wow. So that's interesting.
Yeah. I think that hats are more of like part of your outfit now. And
Right.
so if you took it off, you're probably hiding like the fact that you didn't wash your hair, that your hair looks terrible. Like,
Right.
and it almost feels cruel to tell someone they have to take their head off.
We need to look up what that meant. What was the
That's funny.
disrespect of wearing one inside?
Yeah, I
Right.
don't even know. Okay. Well, another thing that my son said was that men in the kitchen, like he cooks a lot and so does my son-in-law, but Steve cooks like eggs and maybe he's made spaghetti once in like 26 years of marriage. I mean, he just does not cook. And I went away this last weekend just for one night and I came home, you guys, and he was eating cereal out of a Tupperware because all the bowls were dirty and he didn't know how to run the dishwasher. Now, that is, I feel like, and I have 3 teenagers in my house that I taught in March at the beginning of all this COVID how to run all the appliances, and they couldn't remember. You know, I don't know, but people were eating out of Tupperware rather than wash their own dish.
Oh my goodness. Marie.
Now, John is better at all that than I am. But
Is he?
doesn't
Okay.
cook. He doesn't cook. He does not cook. And my dad, I think he would have, if my mom had passed away before him, he would have just starved because he just didn't do that, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
How about Bryce, Mindy? Does he cook?
Not very much now, but he has more recently. So he's been grilling all along. Like there's a joke that I'm not allowed to use the grill because I mean you have one fire and apparently you're not allowed to use the grill again. But no, he's always grilled, but he's actually been in the kitchen more recently. And he was joking just recently. He went to see his family in Kansas. And one of his aunts just is like, she cooks a lot and she makes these big meals. She's used to a lot of people. And he was just talking about like the hospitality that she showed when he was there. And so Bryce said, I didn't have to lift a finger to do anything. And everywhere else Bryce had visited, he was helping with the cooking and making breakfast for people. Well, so I joked, I was like, oh, I want to go there. Like, and jokingly, like not have to lift a finger.
Right.
He said, oh, no, Mindy, it was just the men.
Right.
You'd be lifting fingers, Mindy.
I was like, oh, bummer.
And I think that's true. My grandmother's generation felt like they were to serve their husband and that they didn't need to get up and lift a finger and never help in the kitchen or clear their plate. And, you know, but it was a different time. Most of them weren't working outside the home. That was their job, you know.
Yeah.
Now
a
it's
lot
like,
has changed.
Are your legs broken? Clean that up. You know, like,
Another way that I think we're more casual is clothing. And I think in a positive way, this generation looks less at the outward appearance. They don't judge maybe what you're capable of or how smart you are by what you're wearing. So I just think it's a lot more casual. You know, a lot of offices went to casual Friday. Now I think it's pretty much casual every day.
all the time.
And another thing my son brought up was facial hair.
Oh.
That how popular it is and that it can still be worn by someone who's a professional.
It's true.
Like now you see your doctor or your pilot or even like chefs and waiters in restaurants. That used to be a no-no. And now everybody has a beard and not just a little one. They can have a giant beard.
It's true. It's true. Professionally, it's completely accepted now.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I do feel like my mom and even my grandma have gotten more casual. Like my mom will actually wear like skinny jeans and a nice shirt to church, whereas before she wouldn't. And so I do think that there's a casualness that like even other generations have adopted. But I have noticed something with, I guess, possibly the millennial generation is I've had several friends that we have jobs that work with millennials. And one of the things that like I would never even think to do is like go to work without any makeup or your hair looking like you haven't fixed it, you know, or something like that. But that it's more acceptable that I've seen more millennials be comfortable with no makeup and not really fixing your hair to go to work.
Right.
Or like, that's why you see people at the movies in their pajamas.
Right. I mean, do you guys remember in college, like you would get up early and like get dressed and fix yourself before you went to class. And now I
Mhm.
really think people do they're way more accepting of just throwing your hair in a ponytail and putting sweatpants on. And
Right.
I even wore dresses some days because I wanted to.
Yes.
yeah,
You
you
know?
just wanted to
Yeah.
look nice. And
Yeah.
yeah. So I definitely think you've hit the nail on the head with the casualness, Julie. But I'm thankful for casualness a lot of times now, too.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
I'm thankful that I don't have to be. So, it's something that you do grow to like.
Absolutely. It's hard to go back,
It
you know.
is.
Yeah, I think some of that formality was for what? Like people dressed for dinner in their own home,
Right.
you know?
Mhm.
You watch some
Yes.
old TV shows and the father is in a coat and tie at dinner. Like that's, I don't know.
When we went to the Biltmore, one of the funny things was when they had people come to visit, you would have to bring up to 7 or 8 outfits to change in per day.
Oh, wow.
So
Yeah.
there, like, you would change outfits for each different meal, activity, tea, whatever it was. And so I thought, there's no way. Like, that sounds exhausting.
Mhm.
I love that there's this whole athleisure wear now that is acceptable clothing, that you can wear your leggings and your tennis shoes. And it's really hard to get out of the leggings and tennis shoes, though, once you kind of go down that road.
It is. Yeah.
I do have a pet peeve though. When I
Okay,
am at
let's
a
hear it.
hotel like a Hampton Inn that serves breakfast,
Mhm.
Right.
I do not like to see people coming down to breakfast in their pajamas who haven't
Right.
brushed their hair
Right.
or maybe their teeth, literally just got out of bed and they're eating in a public space. That kind of grosses me out a
I
little.
know. I can't do that. I really can't.
Maybe save some of that for the privacy of your own home.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, one thing I thought was funny, my son was over yesterday and we were talking about voicemails. He said he has never left a voicemail and he does
What?
not have a voicemail signature set up on his phone. So like if you call his phone, it just says you have reached the phone number. It doesn't say like, hi, this is so-and-so.
Mhm.
And I thought that was so interesting. He's like, whoever wants to get in touch with me can text me. I said, well, will you listen to a voicemail? And he said, yeah, I'll listen to them. He said, but, I'd rather get a text. So if you're trying to contact somebody younger than you and they're not responding, you may want to just text them.
Yeah.
Oh, definitely.
You need to text them. Right. Absolutely. That is a huge change.
Yeah. I helped my dad out with that recently. He wanted to get a hold of a contractor that we had used. And he said, Maria, I've left like 3 voicemails and he didn't respond. I said, Dad, just text him. And the next time I saw him, my dad said, oh, that worked like a charm, Marie. He texted me back within 5 minutes.
Right.
Oh, that's so
I think
funny.
voicemails can be overwhelming for people. You have to stop. You have to get into your voicemail. You have to listen. I'd much rather
Right.
receive a text.
I do think the older generations, though, like my mom texts now and she likes to use it for just one word responses like, I made it home, but she still wants a call. She wants to hear a human
Right.
voice.
Right.
She doesn't consider that she has been communicated with if you have just
Sure.
texted her.
Right. Right.
And so I'm
Yeah.
kind of in the middle of that. I do enjoy texting because it's an easy way to communicate, but I can see the other side too. I
Mhm.
can see still needing to hear voices and talk with people.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's funny because I think the younger generation, they'll avoid talking on the phone at all costs. Maybe they'll talk to a family member. Like if they have to call and make appointments, they'd rather just make them online. Or my son
Yes.
changed his car insurance. And normally I would think you would get on and talk with the agent. And he's like, oh, no, I just did it all online. I don't want to talk to anybody. And I just
Right.
thought that was so funny that, talking on the phone is something that is falling by the wayside. My daughter said, I hardly talk to anyone on the phone except for you, Mom. So
Right.
it's just funny.
Yeah.
That's how I feel. But living apart from my children, I want to hear Abby's voice.
Mhm.
If I can't see her in person, I do want to hear my mom's voice. And there's just something special about that. But I don't know about you guys, but my mom, so obviously technology entered the picture when she was an adult. My kids joke and love that my mom uses a bunch of emojis. She has fallen in love with all the different pictures that you can use when you send texts. And so my mom is so cute because they always match the season and the topic that if she's texting, she uses a lot of different pictures to go along with it. And so my son jokes that if I use an emoji, he was like, oh, but you didn't use as many as Nanny.
That's funny because my mom is Nanny too. And whatever she's talking about, like, oh, I baked a pie, she'll find the pie emoji or whatever, you know.
Yes, that's what my mom does. It's really adorable. I'm like, I don't even spend time finding the right emoji.
Yeah.
Another thing that kind of ties in with what Marie, you said that Nick said about maybe roles that men and women play. I think my generation and even my parents tend to stick to more traditional roles, like maybe what jobs the man does and what jobs the woman does in the house. I kind of discovered this accidentally. One day I had taken my car in. I think it had a nail in the tire. And so John told me, can you take this in? And if the nail is in the side wall of the tire, I want you to replace it. Don't patch it.
Okay.
So I just, went with my orders.
Mm-hmm.
When the repairman calls back, he's giving me his what he thinks is going on. And I remember saying, well, all I know is my husband said, if it's in the wall, replace the tire, don't patch. And afterwards, Molly goes, Mom, why did you say that? Why did you say my husband said? Like, why didn't you know what you're talking about? Why didn't you just say, why did you have to add that? And I just thought about that doesn't bother me. Like, I've always seen car care, John's role, house stuff, my role.
Right.
And whereas she's taken that on in her house and she said, I'll do research. I want to know the lingo, the right terms to use so that they don't try to rip me off. Like when I want to be able to go to the dealer or to the repairman or the mechanic and kind of have a reasonable conversation. Like, I know what I'm talking about. Yeah. And that's just not something that I really care to take on. Like, I'm fine saying my husband told me to say this.
Right. Well, I say my husband told me to say it to the car person so that they don't take advantage of me.
Me too.
Because I feel like they're trying to take advantage of women by themselves because they think we don't know anything.
Right.
Mindy, do you kind of use your husband as backup when you're getting the car repaired?
Yeah. There's certain things that I'm like, I'm offended that you would think that I would need to ask my husband. And then other things I'm like, no, my husband said no. It really just, it's like situational. It just depends on what situation I'm in.
Right.
Yeah. I just feel like the car is his realm and I don't even pretend to to take that on.
Well, how about one that you had brought up earlier to me, Julie? I feel like ironing is a lost art. I don't even know if my daughter owns an iron.
Like, what are you talking about, Marie? What is that?
I know. I think one of my kids actually gave their iron back.
Oh, really?
Are you serious?
Like, I'm not really sure what this is for. I'll never use it. I'll admit I iron very little, but I don't think they would even attempt it.
I remember, so my dad was in the Army and he had to get his uniforms ironed and heavy starched and all that stuff. And my mom would spend hours ironing his uniforms, like weekly. But honestly, like once my dad retired from the active Army, there was no more. Like
she ironed enough.
She avoids ironing at all costs.
I used to actually set up the ironing board and the iron with a big basket of ironing, like in the afternoon if the kids were taking a nap, and just like watch a show.
Yeah, I did too.
I didn't really mind it like that, but I definitely would not want to have to be ironing on a daily basis, and I don't do that.
No, I think clothes are just more naturally wrinkle-free now, so they don't need as much.
It's true. And we're so casual. It doesn't matter if you're wrinkled, right?
True. All right. Well, we have to bring up tattoos. My daughter said that she hardly knows anyone anymore without a tattoo. And we were traveling with my family, and I saw this woman with a sleeve, like from her knee down to her ankle, like a tattoo sleeve. And I said to my dad, oh, wow, look at her leg. And he goes, oh, that's terrible. I can't believe it when so many women have tattoos. Meanwhile, his granddaughter is riding with us and Abigail has tattoos. But I don't even think he was thinking of it like that. But I think that's definitely a generational thing.
Definitely.
Right.
I was horrified to think that my daughter would get tattoos when she turned 18. But now I've used to it and it doesn't really bother me.
Yeah, I think that this generation doesn't understand the stigma that they carried at one point. You know, a
Sure.
long, long time ago, if you had a tattoo, you were in the military, prison, a gang, or a rock band. You know, like there just weren't a lot of other reasons to have one. But now youth pastors have tattoos, you know.
It's true.
But that takes a while to get past when that's what you've associated in your mind. And I think it's even harder for grandparents to grasp that.
Right. I remember when Abby turned 18, it's funny, Marie, you mentioned that, like, most of her friends went out and got tattoos. And I would have to say, like, most of her friends are pretty conservative, but especially, you know, they're like, well, this is part of my testimony, you know, and I hear that now a lot. This tattoo is part of my testimony. And people will ask me about tattoos, and then I can tell them my testimony. Like, they use it as a way to talk about their relationship with Christ. And it's ironic because that is definitely so far from what it has been. I mean, even myself, like, my take on it is, I think tattoos are fine. I just would never get one because I changed my mind too much. Like, I don't stick with one decorative style or one way. You know, I want to change up the way I dress, or I change what colors I like, you know, or things like that. I'm like, I just don't want to commit to a lifelong decision there, other than my husband and children.
Right. Well, plus, I think we realize as we age, we realize that our skin elasticity is going, and we think, in 5 years, that picture's probably not going to look the same. Whereas if in your 20s, in 5 years, the picture still probably will look the same.
That's true. That happy face turns to a frowny face.
Right. At some point, you're going to have to, like, spread it out to see what it was.
Right.
Yeah. Let me show you the full picture.
Another thing that I think is a lot different is dating. And that covers a lot of topics. But one that I was thinking about was online dating, you know, through online matching websites.
Right.
And I was talking with a friend's daughter last night, and she said, I would feel so much more comfortable meeting someone online than I ever would in person. Because you can walk away from someone online, but in person, she said, I don't trust people. And I thought that seemed a little backwards because we grew up with our parents saying, don't ever get in someone's car, don't ever go in someone's house, you know, like the unknown, a stranger was just something to be afraid of. And to me, someone online seems like a stranger, but she felt more fearful of meeting men in person because she couldn't get away or couldn't walk away and say no thanks, you know. So I thought that was an interesting perspective.
Yeah, that really
that
is.
she would trust their profiles and
that you're not getting catfished, right?
Yeah.
Well, one of my daughters, she said, you know, waiting to have kids until you're older is a generational thing. And I think that is true. But then I was thinking about my Instagram feed, and like when I go on the Explore page, and you wouldn't believe, I feel like big families are almost coming back for this younger generation. Like, I see women on there with 6 and 7 kids, and they're all lined up like stair steps, and they're all celebrating their pregnancies. And like, I'm wondering if Generation Z will have more kids than the previous generations, maybe sort of like a baby boomer generation was, you know, with that number. I don't know. Have you noticed that, Mindy? You're nodding your head.
I am, because it seems like the pendulum has swung, you know, and we've talked about this with multiple things, even like being on social media, that our kids are more apt to shut it off than we are, you know, or like Julie, you've mentioned Molly going to like cloth diapers and these things that were like, I would never think to do that. You know, we have disposable diapers, you know, but it's almost like these trends towards, and I would even say having children younger again, just understanding the way women's bodies are made and how they function and stuff like that, that kind of idea of waiting until your mid-30s is not quite as popular anymore. And I just see a lot more children and just starting younger than I would say we have come out of, or it just seems like it goes back and forth, you know, if that makes sense.
I do think that I'm noticing something. I don't know if it's going to continue that way, but I have been surprised and I'm pleased by it, but I just am surprised too.
Another example of that pendulum swinging, my son said something about social media. And he said, you know, everybody thinks that kids can't stay off their phones. But he said, I'm noticing adults
Uh-oh.
having issues with that. And he said, look at Facebook. We're not on there anymore. It's
the
all old people.
That's right. Facebook is for old people now.
Right. That's true.
Yeah, one of my kids just in the background saying, yep, Mom, it sure is.
Uh-huh. Well, this is so fun. It's so cool to look at generational differences and see, a lot of them are small, but they say a lot about the generations once you delve a little bit deeper into them. And of course, we're going to definitely see some generational differences as we all gather for the holidays. So maybe we can keep all of that in mind, that something that might strike us as odd or that's not the way we should do it at first glance, if we delve a little bit deeper, we can see a reason behind it, or that there's a deeper meaning for that person, or they're not just doing it without thought, that this culture really has shifted, like with the no hats at the table. If you see a hat at Thanksgiving, you can just know that that's okay now.
Right. Hats at the table and paper towels or cloth napkins only.
Right. Listeners, we'd love to hear what generational differences you've seen in your family. If you want to email us, it's midlifematterspodcast@gmail.com, or come and find us on Instagram at Midlife Matters Podcast. Well, Julie and Mindy, it's time to move into I'm a Fan. All right, Mindy, what are you a fan of this week?
All right. Well, maybe this comes with my generation, but I have started to drink my greens because I wasn't eating enough vegetables.
Yeah.
Yeah, I am a huge fan of athletic greens, and we can post a picture or a link to that or whatever. But basically, I just didn't feel like I was eating enough green vegetables in my diet. And so I couldn't seem to get enough variety, nor find myself making it enough at home. And so Bryce and I finally ordered athletic greens, and I've been drinking my greens.
Oh,
to make sure that I get those. And we have both felt so much better. Like we actually feel like a steady energy stream through the day. Like we just both feel a lot better.
How does it taste?
We both joke that sometimes we kind of chug it down. And my parents were visiting. They're like, "Can't you take a pill for that?"
Right. So it's like a pre-made smoothie that comes to your house?
So it's it comes in powder form.
Oh, okay.
And so my parents were both like, "Well, why wouldn't you take like a multivitamin?" And Bryce and I were like, "Well, we just it's green. We feel like we're actually it's closer to the source or something."
It's a generational difference.
It is. So we're chugging down our greens, choking them down. And my parents are like, "Take a pill."
That's perfect. Well, we'll definitely link to those. And there may be other people that need to get some more greens in their life. All right, Julie, what are you a fan of?
I am a fan of a drink as well, and it's the AHA sparkling water. Have you had that one?
No, I've not heard of
Yes,
that.
I have. They're good.
Yes, they are good, and I like the flavor peach and honey. It is the best.
That sounds great.
Other good ones are strawberry cucumber and lime watermelon.
Ooh.
But I think they have 8 flavors total, but I'm kind of new to sparkling water. I feel like you have to, there's a little bit of a acquired taste. Acquired taste.
Yes.
I thought they were kind of bitter at first, but now I love them because I would prefer not to drink Diet Coke anymore. So this way I still get that soda feel, but no calories, no sugar, no caffeine.
Right.
Where do you buy those?
Oh, just at the grocery. They
Okay.
come in cans in
Okay.
I think they're made by Coca-Cola.
Oh, okay.
Company.
And you've had them, Mindy?
I have. We've been fans of sparkling water and have tried all different kinds, and I do really like the AHA brand. They're very good.
Oh, good. All right, you guys, well, I've got to tell you what I'm a fan of. So, it was a couple Januaries. Maybe it was the first January that we did things we want to try this year. But I said that I wanted to try this blow dryer hair care product thing. And then I kind of forgot about it. And it was Amazon Prime Day last week. And I saw someone post on Facebook that they had a $25 gift card to Amazon. And what would you buy with it? And in the comments, somebody suggested this. And I thought, oh, I've wanted one of those. So I ordered it. Okay, listeners, it is called the Revlon Pro Collection Salon One-Step Hairdryer and Volumizer. And I will definitely put a link. You guys, it was amazing. I will never use a regular blow dryer again, I don't think. And I've only used it one time.
Well, hold it up so we can see it.
Okay. My hair looked so good. And all I had done was blow dry it. I didn't even have to use my straightener or my curling iron. I pictured, it has a brush on the blow dryer, so I pictured it like getting my hair all matted in there. I'd probably end up having to cut it out. No, it goes beautifully through your hair. It's just a great product.
My mom
Nice.
actually has one, and when we were at the beach, I used it.
Oh, did you
And
love
it really does. It doesn't tangle like I thought it would.
Right.
Yeah, it works really well.
Do you have one too, Mindy?
I returned mine.
You did?
I was gonna wait. My hair, because it's thick and longer. Like, especially, I bought it when my hair was quite a bit longer. It took forever to get my hair all the way dry.
Okay.
I
Like,
will say it's slower. I will say
I
that.
loved
Yeah.
it. I'm like, I could spend an hour doing this, and I was like, okay, I can't keep that up.
Because I didn't feel like it took any longer to do my own hair with getting it dry than it would have taken if I had had to dry it, straighten it,
Right.
curl it. You know, like I felt like it took out 2 steps for me, but it might work different with other kinds of hair textures and things like that.
Yeah. Yeah. It is a great, great idea there.
Yeah.
Like, the whole
Yeah.
thing, like, to be able to do it all at once is like every woman's dream.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and you guys, I was so pleased with it. I then did my girls' hair because I wanted to show them how it
Ooh.
was. And Steve walked in the bathroom. He goes, "Oh, what are you doing?" I said, "Oh, I'm playing with this thing. Look at this thing that came in the mail today." He goes, "It didn't just come in the mail. You ordered it." I act like
No.
it just got dropped off.
Steve, somebody sent this to me.
You wouldn't believe what just
Revlon
showed
wants
up.
to know if I like it.
It just
Yeah.
showed up on our doorstep. So I thought, oh, that's so funny that's the way I phrased it, because to me it was like a miracle just landed on my doorstep.
I love that, Marie. That is so awesome.
So anyways, listeners, if you want to try it, I will put a link in our show notes. I loved it. Like I said, I had it on my list from like a couple of years ago and forgot about it. And I'm so glad that I saw it on Amazon Prime Day.
Yes.
All right. Well, it was great talking with you, Julie and Mindy, and I loved hearing about your generational differences.
Yeah, this was fun.
It was fun. Thank you, ladies. Always enjoyable.
Yes. All right. Well, we'll talk to you next week.
All right.
Sounds
Goodbye.
good.
Okay, bye. We're so happy you joined us today. You can find the show notes for this episode at midlifematterspodcast.com. Also, please tell a friend about the show and help them hit the free subscribe button on their favorite podcast app. Be sure to follow us on Instagram at Midlife Matters Podcast. That's where we post pictures and stories about all the things we talk about in each episode. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week.